protest officers, city protests, city protests,
local, specifically city officers, local officers, local city, specifically officers, local officers, city officers, local officers,
protest and officers,
protest, officers,
many and
officers, specifically
local city,
local city, specifically city, local protest, local city, specifically
city protest,
local city, mosting,
local protests,
specifically
local city, local officers protest, city,
local city,
officers, local city
protest, specifically officers, specifically
Portland cooperating, local city, local officers, protest officers,
protests,
specifically officers, specifically
protest,
officers, specifically
officers,
protest officers, city, local
officers, city, local,
city,
and officers,
city,
officers, local, city,
local,
specifically local, city, local, specifically officers and officers,